again, everyone, to another episode of the Raising the Jedi series. We're going to get started. We're going to kick off today's episode with Het Heru, and we're going to observe the second phase of the division of the first aspects of consciousness in at the animal level. And so Het Heru has a lot to do with attraction, beauty, things that are magnetic in quality. So when we look at the things that are going on in the season, we know that that's a property of magnetism. So we're going to take a look at that. This is going to be part one, and we're going to really dive into each of the angles or the angels or the faculties that Het Heru exhibits when she expresses every aspect of the tree of life within herself. Okay, so how we're going to do this is we're going to recap. Okay, we're going to recap for our new viewers, and we're going to actually visit. You'll have a chance to visit the YouTube channel to catch up in more detail. But how we're going to do this, we're going to start it off like this. First off, you are the Jedi. Okay, so we are raising the Jedi by raising the frequency from lower states to higher states by reestablishing the cosmic blueprint. That cosmic blueprint is called by our ancestors the Het Heru, and this is a blueprint upon which the very fabric of the cosmos is founded. And so cosmos, our macrocosmos, then we have microcosmos, which is the planet itself, and then you have another redundancy where you have your physical body, and then still another redundancy where you have the cells and so forth that make up the body, and it just goes sort of like the phi ratio. It goes infinitely small, and then you have the infinitely large aspect of the same thing, happening. So what we're trying to do here at our level with using the human consciousness, we're striving to realign ourselves with the natural order, because here on the planet we have a unique opportunity just by virtue of not having everything right at our fingertips, like the various resources that are scattered around in the environment. We have to become knowledgeable enough to be able to actually go out and retrieve those resources and then reconstitute ourselves so that we can achieve perfect balance. Okay, so that's how we're going to go about this. We're going to actually reconnect with that cosmic blueprint, and then we're going to apply the resources, the knowledge, and we're going to put it into action. And when we place it into action, we'll find that our lives will become more balanced, and we'll be able to solve every problem there is, from health, from problems of wealth. We'll be able to solve those problems because we have the blueprint that is actually shown. It actually shows up in every aspect of our lives. Okay, so let's see. We can go here to our next part. We want to find out how do we actually find out if what we're saying is true. If we're using this blueprint, how do we know that, okay, well, this guy's up here talking about the tree of life and its connectivity to the body, and to history and so forth. And it's like, well, we have different ways of finding, we have a method. We have various methods of coming to truth. We don't necessarily have to rely on academia to put something out, according to information that says this is reliable information, and then say that it's true. We have methods that we would call interdisciplinary cross referencing. So if let's say we have a principle like Het Heru, we can look at the art, the art behind it, and we can look at the symbology behind it. And in a lot of cases, we can see that if we find patterns that stretch across time, stretch across cultures, stretch across disciplines of science, in almost every facet of academia, what have you. If we start seeing those patterns, then we're going to say, okay, if it looks like that saying, looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Okay, that's how we'll approach this. So, in the case of Het Heru, we can look at the art when we're looking at when we're trying to discover, okay, how is this person being represented in ancient times or prehistoric times, before we actually have written records, but we have record that's carved in stone. Okay, we have to start looking at symbols, and then we look at how far these symbols travel through time and space, and then we start putting things together according to things that are already inherent within us. Okay, we look at then we can go even further. We can rely on Sebek, the academic, who relies on language, okay, linguistics, phonics, okay. In a lot of cases, the words that we use, no matter what language you're speaking, and no matter what dialect it comes from, if it has a certain sound to it, there's meaning that's tucked inside of that sound. And in most cases, those sounds carry across multiple cultures. So we can find out the truth about a particular aspect of life just by how it sounds. Okay, even in our English language, there are words that are used where sound can actually give us more insight than the spelling of it, because spells and spelling, they're related, and in a lot of cases those spells are crafted. Okay, so they can change, they can morph, or what have you, but if the sound is being made, the meaning is always carried in the vibration. Okay, we can also find out the truth of a premise through astrology and or astronomy. Okay, for example, we can look at a often debated argument about whether or not Easter and Ishtar are the same. Okay, I can say that they are definitely the same. We even have people who rely on academia to support an argument that says, okay, well, the word Ishtar sounds similar, but it's of this particular culture, and in this culture they use this word this way and that way. As I said before, words, they can be crafted, or the spelling can be crafted or what have you, but if you got that sound in there, if you have that sound in there, you know that the meaning is there. Okay, so when we look at, let's just say, we'll just give you we'll give you a pass on the spelling. We can check you astronomically, or when we look at some of the things that happen with Ishtar. Okay, Ishtar is a goddess of fertility. Okay, and so when we look at Easter, we're looking at a phenomenon, or energetic phenomenon, that has to do with fertility, or being very fructifying, something that's able to reproduce. Okay, but the height of reproductive force or energy happens during the springtime. Okay, and so we start finding a pattern there. Okay, so if you have Ishtar, who is the one who is closest to spring, where things start, there's mating, there's multiplication of animals and plants and so forth. We start to find those connections there. Okay, let's go astrologically. Okay, when we look at astrology, we know that we're approaching spring, and Aries is the time of the year when, well, actually the sun approaches the equator, which is geographically represented by Aries on a map. If we were to lay out a map, we'd see the Aries. You'd have towards the south, there's the Tropic of Capricorn, which would be the very bottom of the astrological wave or circle, and the sun has to travel the route all the way up to the equator, which is called right ascension Aries. And in that period, that's where the sun becomes more present and prevalent onto the land if you're living in the area of the equator and towards the north. So when we see the sun coming, then things start to come alive. Okay, now that alive force is the attractive force that actually brings the sun, and the sun awakens everything. It's the one that fertilizes, or it actually activates that which is already fertile, and it brings everything to life. It brings the plants, the animals, the human beings that are there, because everything begins to thrive. So this is how we can come to know truth. You have to have multidisciplinary approaches to it, and not rely totally on the academia that rests so heavily on a particular language, or just things that have to do with history that can be crafted or switched around to suit a particular agenda. So you have to look at patterns. Mathematics, that's another way we can look at it. So this is how we know what we know here. And if you have any doubts, just cross-reference. If you find that you can only support your theory in one way, then you know that you have a little more work to do. Okay, so who and what is Heru? Heru, the what of Heru? Heru is an energetic frequency. Okay, this frequency is of an attractive force, and this frequency has to do with pleasure, has to do with joy, beauty, fertility, arousal, and attraction. And it's feminine. Now we know it's feminine because on the Tree of Life we have the introduction of consciousness into polarities. Okay, and so on this Tree of Life, same here in the macro, and we're here in the micro, same thing applies. On the right hand side, we're designating as feminine, which would have a negative charge. If I were to put a negative charge up here, this would be the feminine polarity, which has to do with attraction. And then we have on the repulsion. So these are forces that attract each other, or that attract and repulse, and depending on how they relate to one another, they'll attract more or they'll repulse. They'll have a different type of effect. So this is how we know about Het Heru. She's the attractive force, and same thing with her higher aspect of Ma'at. She's an attractive force as well. So let's see, where was I? Okay, who is she in religion and mythology? Okay, we're going to cover more in part 2. We're looking at Egyptian religion, and I thought this was pretty interesting. The word Hathor, and how we have up here the indigenous Het Heru. When we see Hat and then Hor, we see Hat, and we can hear the Het, Hat, Het, and then we have Hor, Horus. Heru and Horus are the same. So House of Heru, Hathor, they're of the same. They're of the same kind. So that Egyptian, you see the pattern there. Okay. In the Hindu, we have Lakshmi or Parvati. Okay. In the Greek, we have Aphrodite. In the Roman, we have Venus. And the Sumerian, we have Inanna. And then Christian, we have the Mary Magdalene. Okay, and we're going to go in deep with this. And so stay tuned, and I appreciate you all tuning in once again. This is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to have some nice imagery, and then after part 2, we're going to take a pause before going to Heru, and we're going to actually see what the combination of Het Heru and Sebek, the two sides or the two hemispheres of our psyche, when they work together in balance and harmony. So this is the goal of our evolution as we raise the JED, or as we raise the frequency of our total being. All right, thank you all for tuning in. All right, we shall return. Yes.